Now let's add bombs to our game. Go back to the Layer tab, click on the background layer and double click to add a new object. It's a sprite and we will be importing frames, and we will go into the bomb folders, in the bomb folder, excuse me, and import our 3 frames. We want the animation speed to be 6, so it will play twice each frames, and set loop to yes. We set the collision polygon to bounding box as it is at the moment, so it's very good, and the image point is in the middle. We are okay with this. Let's modify a bit of properties, name it bomb, and we will need to add a few instance variables. We will add a variable range, keep it to 0 for now. We will also add a counter, here it is, a counter variable, which will allow us to count the time before the bomb explodes, which will be around 3 seconds. We will also, it's a bit early, but let's add it for now, it's the bomber UID, which will allow us to check if it's for the first player or the second player. I will get back on this later and probably in the 4th video. And finally, add a solid state variable, and this time it won't be a number, it will be a boolean, and it will be false by default. Okay. So this variable will allow us to make sure, because the bomb will be solid, but from the moment the Bomberman will drop and plant its bomb, we don't want it to be solid at that moment. We want it to be solid once the bomber has moved, and then it won't be able to come back on it. I will explain a bit later on too and show you directly. We will need to add a solid behavior to our bomb, and that's about it for now. We will move it out of the screen because we don't want a bomb to pop in the middle of our screen right at the beginning. And we will need to add yet another plugin, which is the function plugin. The function plugin, like the keyboard plugin, is a global plugin which doesn't really appear in your layout but is accessible through the whole project. We will need to add a few variables to our bomber, which will be bombs, which will be the number of bombs he has, as well as the bomb range, which will be actually the number of flames the explosion will spawn when the bomb explodes. So coming back on this a bit later too. Another modification I need to do to my bomber object is to add a new image point. This image point will be the position where I spawn the bombs, and it will depend on the animation. So the name is correct, the position is not the same. I will use therefore the left animation, on the right animation, my bad, 48 by 96. As you can see, it's a bit in front of him. Right click and I will apply to whole animation. This way, whatever the frame of our current animation is, it will be spawned at the correct position. In the down animation, I will need to add yet another image point. The position will be 32 by 110. Apply to all animation. And once again, I've found those positions by trial and error and what felt better. For the left animation, it's 16 by 96. Apply to whole animation. And finally, it will be 32 by 96 and apply to all animation. And so let's go in our events. We will add yet another group and call it bombs. Okay. And we will actually go into the player controls, and that's where we will be creating the bombs. So add a sub-event on the keyboard and on key pressed, and go with the space key. And so when space will be pressed, and we will add a sub-event to this to check if the number of bombs available is greater than 0. So the Bomberman can plant some bombs. We will be creating an object bomb in the system create object. We will pick a bomb. It will be on the layer character, no, background actually. And the X position will be int, very much like for the neutral position in the movement of our bomber. We will want to place the bomb in the middle of the current square. And so int bomber dot image points x1. So this is the X position of the image point 1 we've created a bit earlier, and divided by 64, multiplied by 64 plus 32. And that will be about the same for the Y, and so all we need to modify there is the Y. Done. We'll add another action to make it so that the bomb is not solid right there. So disabled. The solid behavior is disabled on creation of the bomb objects. We will subtract 1 from the bombs of the bomber. We will set the range to the one of the bomber. So bomb range. We will set the bomber UID to the UID property of our bomber. And this property is actually a unique identifier, which makes it's a number that is unique and that is only for this instance of the object. And so it's a way to make sure that the parent, if you want, of the bomb is that Bomberman and only that one. And that's it for now. So this will allow us to create a bomb. If I'm testing, I'm moving around, as seen earlier, and I'm planting a bomb. Of course, for now, my bomber has no bombs, so I will add 2 bombs just for the sake of our test. And I'm planting a bomb and planting another one. Here they are. But as you can see, they don't explode, they just go and loop their animation. So now, for our bombs to explode, we need yet another object, and this will be the explosion. So we will be importing frames, Bomberman, flame, here it goes. We need to set the speed to 5, it's okay, and loop to yes. Rename it to explosion, and we will add a few behavior. We will add a destroy outside of layout, which means that when we execute our game, this flame right there will just destroy because it's outside of our layout. And we will also add a fade behavior. The fade behavior will make it progressively disappear and change its opacity over time. And we can go back into the bombs group and add a sub-event and make a function. A function will be a gathering of actions as well as events and sub-events that will be called from a specific position in our logic. Contrary to how events work, that is to say that the event sheet is read from top to bottom, the function won't be executed once the program reads it, but when it is called. And the name of our function will be create explosion with a S, it's better. Create explosions. And what I will do is add a sub-event to it and make a loop that will name range, and that will go from 1 to f dot param, actually it's function param 0. So there, when I will be calling the create explosions function, I will pass it some parameter, which will be this right there, the function dot param 0, and it will allow us to define the range of the explosion, that is to say the number of consecutive explosions and flames we will be spawning in our map. So system, make an action, create object. I want to create explosion on the layer background, and it will be bomb.x since it will be spawned from a bomb, and I will add the f.param, so function dot param 1 multiplied by loop index range, and we will do the same for the y, so bomb y and f param 2. So this loop will actually, this action will be repeated for the amount of time from 1 to the first parameter we pass to our function, and it will create an explosion with the basis of the current bomb X position and add the current range plus a certain parameter we are passing it, and do the same for the Y. It's can be a bit difficult to understand, I'm aware, but that's kind of what programming is about. And we will also add there a sub-event to check if the explosion is overlapping another object, which is block. And if it does, we will destroy the explosion, because we don't want the explosion to appear above some block. The explosion, it will be a limit where it won't go, and we will stop the current loop. So stop loop. So this will mean that according to where we are spawning our bomb, let's pretend our bomb has a range of 2. So it will create an explosion right there and then right there, and actually it will be doing so in this way. That's it. And actually, when it will be spawning this direction, this flame right there will be automatically destroyed, because I don't want, it's a limit, it's a solid block. Another example is that if I'm doing so, I won't be destroying this this flame, so this one will appear too. And let's pretend now that we have a range of 3. So it will be doing so. I will still want to not create this explosion. This one won't either, because there is a block and it's an explodable block though. So the flame will appear upon it and destroy the block. And this one will be destroyed as well. And this one will go. I hope it's making some sense. So what I need to do there is to check for if it is overlapping an E block, and I won't destroy the flame, but I will stop the loop nevertheless, so that it doesn't go beyond. So yes, that's what will happen when we call a function explosion. But to call this function, we will need to check that our bomb counter value is greater or equal to 3. Then that 3 seconds have passed since we've planted our bomb. And we will make another loop for that. Add a sub-event, make a new for loop. We will name it direction bomb, direction flame even. Oops. Direction flame from 1 to 4, because it's the 4 directions, but it's not to be confused with this. It's not the direction of the Bomberman. It's another direction. And as a sub event, I will be comparing 2 values, which is loop index direction flame and make sure it's equal to 1, and I will then copy this 2, 3, 4, and 4, and we will be calling the function. So calling the function create explosions, and I will add some parameters to it. So our first parameter will be the range of the bomb. The second parameter right there will be the X offset, if you want. So 64, and add parameter 0 because it's on the same Y level. So 1 will create flames to the right. 2 will create flames down. So I'm inverting the values. Then left, I will add a minus 64. And finally up, a 0, minus 64. And finally, I need yet to add a blank sub-event that will just, so it means this blank sub-event right there will mean that I will execute whenever a bomb has the counter value greater or equal to 3, it will create explosions, and this event will execute no matter what just after the loop, and this will actually destroy our bomb. And before testing, I need to add an every tick event, and for every bomb add to counter the value dt. Okay, and so to test again, like our number of bombs, I will set 3 bomb range, and this should work. 1, 2, 3, and it has created explosions, and the explosions have gone. So you can see there is still 1 explosion missing, and at the moment the blocks are not destroying. So let's go back to our event sheet. Right there I need to create an explosion on the layer background at the bomb.x position and bomb.y position. So this way it will do the trick. Another thing I need to add right there is that when a bomb destroys or is destroyed, so it explodes on destroyed, I will want to also pick by unique ID the bomber UID. I will add back to the bombs, because the bomb has exploded, so now it means that my bomber can plant again another bomb. I also need to add a bomb is overlapping another object bomber, but actually I will be inverting this condition, so it means that when a bomb is not overlapping a bomber, I will then set the bomb to solid. It's enabled, that's okay, and I will set its solid state to true. That's it. So that's where we will need to add a little modification to our bomber's movement, because at the moment we are just checking if the bomber is overlapping blocks or explodable blocks, but I don't want also the bomber to overlap a bomb that has been planted. So I will add a sub-event bomber is overlapping another object bomb, and I will also need to check that the bomb solid state is set to true, so that the bomb has been planted, that the bomber moved away, and that these actions have happened. And if so, I will actually just copy the actions from the blocks and e-blocks and make it so that the character becomes neutral and can't move on them. So if I'm testing, I will put a bomb, and as you can see now, I can't move over the bomb. I have 2 bombs, I can plant them, 2. So now what I will want is to check for the explosions over the blocks, and especially the explodables blocks. So make a new group, add a group explosions, We'll put it right there. We will add a sub-event. Actually, the every tick, I will want it right there. This way I won't have to deal with it again. So add a sub-event and check when an explosion is overlapping another object and the other object will be a E-block. And I will also need to add another condition. I want to check for the opacity of the flame and to be less or equal to 10. Because I don't want the block, the explodable block, to disappear as soon as the explosion appears, but as the explosion fades away, I want then the block to disappear. So I'm checking for lower opacity. The default opacity and the full opacity is 100. So checking when it's less than 10 feels like it should be pretty fine. And just destroy the block at that moment. And if I go back and test it, here it is. My blocks have gone. Nice. Another thing I will want to do is to make it so that if an explosion is overlapping a bomb, I want the bomb to be triggered at that moment. And I don't need on this one to check for the opacity. So when it's overlapping a bomb, I will set the current bomb value counter to 3. And this way you can make chain reactions like that. And finally, I will also want to check if a flame is overlapping a bomb, and actually I will destroy the bomb. Which will also means that it's possible to be a defeat condition, if you will. And so now, boom. And I can't do anything anymore at the moment. Now what we will want to do is to add some power-ups to our game. So go back, make sure you're at explosion in the background layer, excuse me. Add some sprites and import frames, power-ups and 3 frames. Right there we will have a little trick, which is to change the speed to 0, because this is not an animation. Those are 3 different frames. When I'm displaying a power-up, I don't want first to be one that adds bombs or adds range or changes the speed. It's just a single power-up. So setting the speed to 0 will display one and only one frame. So change the name to power-up. It is all it is. But we will be making a new group, power-ups. I'm using groups because it allows, as you can see right there, by expanding and collapsing, to keep a better organization of my events and still be understandable. Right there, I know that all the events that are related to the inputs of my player are right there. The events that are related to the movement of the bombers are there, etc. And so in the power-ups, I will add a sub-event, and this will be when an E-block is destroyed. Because what will happen is that when an E-block gets destroyed, I will want, on a random basis, to either drop a power-up or not. So when it gets destroyed, I will add a blank sub event, and I will add a local variable that I will name random var. So this local variable means that it can only be accessed by the sub events of this event. So if I was trying to access this variable from this group, for example, it wouldn't be possible. Whereas the global variables are accessible from anywhere in the project, even in a different event sheet. And right there, as it is a kind of temporary variable, I don't need it to be accessible from anywhere else. And I will actually set its value right there, as you can see, random var, and make it an int random and 3. And so what this action will do is that it will set the value of random var to be either 0, 1 or 2. It's the maximum value is there, as I'm making it an integer, it will be less than 3, so it will be 2 maximum. And then I will be checking, add a sub event, I will be checking the value of random var, and if it's equal to, for example, 1, which will only happen once, so if the value is 0 or if the value is 2, those action and this event won't execute. And when the random var will be 1, I will be creating a power up on the background layer and at the eblock.x and eblock.y position. Also, I will randomly set the frame of our object to int random and power up dot animation frame count. So once again, the random expression that will pick one value among the number of frames, so our 3 frames, and so this is totally random. So for example, let's hope we have luck. We did not. Let's hope we have more luck. We still haven't. So to test, what we can do is to change right there, and if it's less or equal to 2. So this means right there that whatever value will be randomly picked right there, it will drop a power up. And so here we are, 3 power ups, but for now we haven't interactions with those. Let's go and do that just now. So the interaction will be that when the bomber is overlapping a power up and add a sub event depending on what the frame of the power up is. If the frame is 0, so at the moment we add bombs, the 1 will be we will be adding range, and the frame number 2 will be that we will be adding some speed to our character. So animation frame 0, we add 1 to the number of bombs of our bomber. On the animation 1, we will add 1 to the bomb range, but I will still want to limit right there something which is the current bomb range, which will have to be less than 6. So it means that at the maximum we will be spawning 7 flames, the one on the bomb itself, and then 6 flames after. And finally, we will modify the speed of our bomber, and so we will check that the speed step is equal to 0. Add 1 to speed step. So this will be a way to make sure that we already added some speed or not. We will modify the move time to 0.125, which is half of the current move time, and modify also the distance it will travels during this time, and double it. And finally, we will add another blank sub-event and simply destroy the power up, since we don't want to be able to pick the power up again. And so if we test, go right there. So this will change our speed, as you can notice. This one won't change the speed though, and this one will add 1 more bomb. 1, 2, 3 bombs. Here it is, our power-ups are working. The last modification I will want to make is that when an explosion is overlapping a power-up, so I will just copy this event right there and make it so power-up, and that the opacity is about greater or equal 80, because what will happen is there we are our explosion that is overlapping an E-block, and the E-block can spawn a power-up, but our explosion won't have disappeared. So by checking for the opacity to be superior to 80 at that moment, we make sure that the power-up will actually spawn. And see, the power-up spawns, but if I'm having another bomb, it gets destroyed. And that's about it for the current video.